Hello and welcome to the Sunday Politics here in the glorious west of England, although it feels quite frankly more like the south of France with the sun just glinting on those wonderful yachts over in the harbour side. Well, we're here because it's the Bristol Harbour Festival, and this is where the West Country has traded with the rest of the world, well, for centuries. And that's the key question now as we approach Brexit. How do we continue to trade with the EU? Well, we now know where Mrs May wants to head on her Brexit voyage, but of course there's no guarantee that Brussels will give her the agreement that she wants. So what would happen then? We'll be asking the International Trade Secretary and North Somerset MP, Dr. Liam Fox, about that later in the programme. But first, our correspondent Dave Harvey has been to one of Bristol's twin cities, Bordeaux, to find out what a no deal might actually mean to us here in the West.
Another river, another port, another city built on trade. There can't be many countries more patriotic about their food and drink than the French. But even here in Bordeaux, you can find a taste of the west of England. And I know a man from Bristol who can help me sniff them out.
Got some great West Country products, wild garlic nuts from Glastonbury.
James Monk spends his life helping West Country firms sell to the world.
A wonderful selection of drinks.
I'm doing another pop-up with BHV.
He's meeting an importer called Emma, English-born, now Bordeaux-based. Selling English delicacies to the French is just her cup of tea.
We sell to hotels, bars, restaurants. They're a little bit proud when they have something English on their table, especially if it's something to do with tea time.
It's a nice business for Emma, but does all this amount to, well, more than just peanuts?
Exports of food from the southwest are nearly £2 million a day. And if you just look at the nut market, the Europeans spend over £5 billion a year on nuts. That's a market worth cracking.
And it's not just fancy little delis selling the West Country to the French. In one of the biggest supermarket chains, we find cheddar fresh from Somerset. So we've got some Somerset cheddar in there and some West Country lamb.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? Finding these products here in the centre of France. But the amazing thing is, West Country cheese is so popular here, and the UK actually sells £85 million worth of cheese a year to France. And it's not just the cheese, it's the lamb as well. 20% of UK lamb ends up in France every year.
As if that wasn't enough, they're even buying our beer.
Tonight we're having a Bristol Beer Festival.
That's right, a Bristol Beer Festival, right here in Bordeaux. Tonight, 6 craft brews on tap, all fresh from the West Country.
I have to say that you guys know how to do beer probably better than us.
They drink our beer, they eat our cheese. So how will this ancient trading relationship change after Brexit?
Right, let's get this picnic started with some Bristol beer.
In front of the old Bordeaux Customs House, James and I set up a little West Country picnic.
We're going to need a few nibbles, aren't we?
Joining us, the president of the Association de Bristol-Bordeaux.
Contribution from Bordeaux.
Thank you very much.
Here you are.
A Frenchwoman who loves all things Bristolian.
And we know that Bristol is particularly a European city, so I think all Bordeaux people who know Bristol and who have friends in Britain will definitely go on having these products.
Now, under the Prime Minister's Chequers plan, this food and drink entente cordiale will continue untroubled. But striking a deal is still looking mighty tricky.
James, the big question, if there's no deal on Brexit, what happens to this West Country spread in Bordeaux?
Well, if there's a really hard Brexit and we fall back to the World Trade Organization tariffs, it's going to be complicated, and this is what we're going to end up with. We're going to see beer staying just the same, 0% change to that, so that's good. Soft drinks and cider though, that's going to go up by about 6p for a bottle that size, so not too bad on that front. The snacks, 3%, I don't think that's going to make a huge difference to people, couple of pence or a couple of centimes extra. Cheese though, that's going to really hit the West Country producers. That could be going up by as much as 40% for cheddar. Now that's a big increase. However much the people in Bordeaux love their cheddar, 40% could change it. And when we look at the lamb as well, 42% again there. Big increases potentially coming our way.
So that is what we sell to the French, but of course they sell stuff to us as well. Notably, this. Around the world, the name Bordeaux means one thing: a bottle of wine. Last year, they sold 645 million bottles. The UK is their third biggest export market. We buy a bottle in every 10. A bottle of this will set you back 70 euros, would you believe it? But actually, more than half the wine that Bordeaux sells to the UK wholesales at less than 3 euros a bottle. I picked this one up in a Bristol supermarket for £6.
On a des notes de fraîcheur, de fruits, le fruit qui est encore très frais.
It looks grand enough, but wine is classed as an agricultural product. So if Brussels buys the PM's compromise deal, well, the Bordeaux will keep flowing.
And the first glass always calls for a second. Cheers, Dave. Cheers.
But if not, if the UK walks away with no deal, wine will face a 33% tariff.
That would be catastrophic. It would inevitably have a 33% repercussion on the selling price. Margins throughout the chain, throughout the supply chain, are very tight and renegotiated very severely in a very competitive market every year.
But what if there's no actual tariffs on wine, but just a lot more paperwork and everything has to be filled in for customers? How would that affect the trade?
You can imagine truckloads just waiting for customs clearance from the massive car park in the heat of sunshine. That could even potentially affect the quality of the wine itself.
So what do people around here think when they hear British politicians say, we've got to be able to walk away with no deal at all, leave you to fight under World Trade Organization rules?
It would be terrifyingly destabilizing, and we have no visibility of what's going to happen. And that's what is most detrimental to trade. The consequences are very far-ranging and very destabilizing and can be dramatic for a lot of companies.
Of course, they don't only sell wine here. And while we're in town, there's a special Brexit conference. What do traders think of the UK's half-in, half-out compromise?
One thing which is clear, you cannot be inside and outside.
Some here are hoping to win new work, as British firms will face more complexity, especially in services which aren't covered by the Chequers proposals. But Brexit, they all agree, will cost everyone.
First of all, you have some companies that have significant sales in UK, and then also we can expect from this exit also a global negative impact for Europe. So that's why they're anxious. To think that nothing will happen is a bit optimistic.
So that's the business, but what about the politics? In the end, people say trade will always out. Brussels will look after the car makers of Munich, the wine producers here in Bordeaux. But is that how they really see it here in Europe? I'm going to go find a politician to find out.
Everybody has a lot to lose from no deal or hard Brexit on both sides of the channel.
Bordeaux's International Affairs Councillor works every day with European companies. But she insists there's a lot more to the European Union than just a shared market.
My feeling is that the British people have always considered the EU as just a very vast market of 500 million people. Whereas for us, continental Europe, it's a lot more. It's about values, it's about peace, it's about also building some harmony in a large and hostile world. The British Empire dates back to a long time ago and it will not come back. So it's also in the British interest to stay within Europe and not just, a small island isolated in the North Sea.
And if Britain walks away with no deal, what impact does that have?
Britain will walk away, but then we'll come back to the table of negotiations. So I think this is probably about men flexing muscles to get a better deal.
And now the British are offering compromise. For the first time, I hear a European politician predicting Brussels will bend as well.
Businesses in Germany, as you said, in France and other countries will see that there is probably the need to have a very specific link created for the UK. We can't just treat the UK like if it was any other country in the world. So I'm confident that politicians and businesses will help find maybe a handcrafted solution for that particular position, which has been anticipated by no treaty.
Right now in Bordeaux, they're negotiating contracts for Somerset cheddar, fixing prices for their famous wine. Billions of pounds of trade depend on the Brexit deal makers.